Hi everyone, welcome back to another video in the Web Security Academy series. In today's video, we'll be covering lab number 22 in the cross-site scripting module titled Reflected XSS into a JavaScript string with angle brackets and double quotes HTML encoded and single quotes escape. If you do not have an account on the Web Security Academy, you can get one by visiting the URL portsfigure.net/websecurity and clicking on the sign up button. I already have an account and I am logged in, so to access the exercise, I'm going to click on Academy, select all labs, do a search on cross-site scripting labs, and go down to lab number 22, titled Reflected XSS into a JavaScript string with angle brackets and double quotes HTML encoded and single quotes escaped. Alright, let's get started. This lab contains a reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability in the search query tracking functionality where angle brackets and double are HTML encoded and single quotes are escaped. To solve this lab, perform a cross-site scripting attack that breaks out of the JavaScript string and calls the alert function. Alright, so our target goal over here is to perform an XSS attack that calls the alert function. Let's access the lab. Now notice over here, this is the built-in browser in Burp, and so all my requests are already being passed to my Burp proxy. Alright, as usual, the first thing you do when you're testing for cross-site scripting vulnerabilities is you look for client-side parameters that get reflected back in the application. So for example, over here, if we say test and click on search, you could see over here that my input was definitely reflected back in the client-side code of the application. Let's right-click and view page source to see if there's any other part in the application where it's reflected. So let's do Control Find and look for the string test. You could see over here there are two entries. The first one is in the heading parameter, which we saw right over here. And then there's a second one, which is not directly visible to us in the browser, that is in a script. So you can see over here, we've got a variable called search terms, and then the value that we put in here gets inputted in here, and then the application does some kind of writing to the page with that. All right, so both fields definitely need to be tested for cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. The first thing that I'm going to do is add a bunch of characters that are used when we're testing for cross-site scripting and see if these characters are being encoded. So if we go back over here, let's do less than sign and then test, and then let's do single quote and double quote and see which characters are being encoded. So let's hit search right over here and then view the page source. And if we go down over here, you could see in the heading parameter, the less than sign, the single quote, and the double quote are all URL encoded. But over here in the script tag, the less than sign is URL encoded, the double quote is URL encoded, but the single quote is only escaped. So that's interesting. Maybe we could try and exploit that. So what we're going to do over here is go back to our payload. So we've got the search field right over here. And then let's just remove everything except for a backslash and a single quote. So what I'm trying to do over here is see if the backslash itself is escaped. If it's not, when I put a backslash right over here, what it'll do is it'll escape this backslash and then my quote is no longer escaped. So let's hit enter, go down, and here we go. So you can see this is my backslash right over here. This backslash escapes it, and then my single quote right now is valid and is no longer escaped. So this is really good. Now the next step is just simply to add my alert function because I got out of this string right over here. So to do that, let's go to our text document and just add a regular string that will be inputted in the search field right over here. And then we've got our backslash and single quote. And then I'm going to add a semicolon to end this variable right over here. And then I just add alert 1 and then semicolon. And then we're left with a single quote and a semicolon. So we could just use the slash sign, so the double slash sign, in order to comment it out. So let's copy this, put it in here, and close this off and click on search. And here we go, we're presented with the alert function. Click OK, and you should see the congratulations, you solved the lab message. Now, if we view the source code, you could see over here, essentially what I did is I just closed off this search term over here. I added my alert function, and then I just commented out the rest of the characters that were available in the script. And that is pretty much it. So we successfully completed the exercise by exploiting the reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability. In the next lab, we'll look at another case of a cross-site scripting vulnerability.